Alright, so welcome back to Condor Online, and today has been a really interesting day with interviews, but now I'm here with a double-decker of interviews. I have two people here in the studio. I'm Chase Johnson Lynch with Condor Online, and I would like to welcome Kate Gore and John Au. Thank you very much for joining me. I will tell everybody where you're from, but I just want to get you guys into the room with us here right now.
Ladies first.
Oh. So I'm Kate Gore, I'm the Disability Hate Crime at Daisy Inclusive UK. We are a disability-led charity that is based in Anfield, and my job is solely to support victims of disability hate crime, and I do that right across the Merseyside region.
John, I would like to say everybody knows John, but go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I'm John Au. I'm the manager of the Anthony Walker Foundation, a charity that was formed 13 years ago after the aftermath of Anthony Walker's murder, a racist murder that shocked the whole city and further beyond just the city. And the foundation is set up to raise awareness of racism, and we've expanded that to all forms of hate crime, which we'll talk about later. And also to raise awareness, about hate crime, and to work in schools to educate young people to try and ward off hate crime.
Now, this is really like powerful stuff, because even though we have been focusing on these live interviews for Mental Health Awareness Week, I just thought it would be really interesting because of the type of people that are coming in. Hate crime has a lot to do a little bit with mental health, doesn't it? So I just thought that it would be interesting to have two experts in to talk about it, because we were having a conversation in the show notes where we were talking about what we could call like the invisible disability, or I call it the hidden blanket of news around disability, where it's like one of the interesting things was we were talking about hate crime itself, that people seem to have the opinion that, well, if I'm not black, then it's not a hate crime. But you were telling us that it has nothing to do with that, because there's all forms of hate crime.
There's the 5 strands of hate crime, so I solely go out and deal with people who or support people who have a disability. Very often they will not recognise that that is a hate crime, because we very much portray in the media and online, that it's race hate crime. So a person with a disability, if you've got a bit of a learning disability and you're not fully understanding, you don't always know that you're a victim of a hate crime. So that's about raising that awareness and educating and ensuring that people are reporting these things, because it's not just race and religion, it's disability and LGBT as well. So we need to raise the profile of all 5 strands.
Definitely, I think as well, with the murders of Anthony Walker and before that, the murder of Stephen Lawrence, there has been so much work done about racism, but the same amount of work and resources need to be put into different strands. And I think in recent years there has been efforts, certainly locally on Merseyside, to promote awareness about disability hate crime. And when they do that, there's an increase in reporting, isn't there? But it needs to be concerted effort. Otherwise it'll never get to the level.
You see it go in cycles, don't you? So you do the drive on disability and the reports go up. You do, like more recently, the drive's been on LGBTQ and the figures have gone up. So it shows that, raising that awareness does increase the figures.
Well, I thought it was interesting, where you were telling me about Daisy Inclusives and how it was set up by a person who has a visible disability, who was blind. But then when we were talking about that, we were talking about, like in presentations, for example, like what works for him may not work for others who are also blind. So there's a lot of, how should we say, differences within the difference, you know what I mean? And you use the term tuning into frequency. That was good. Can you say a little bit more about that?
If you've ever met our managing director, Dave Kelly at Daisy Inclusive UK, he did go blind when he's 30, so he's lived with a disability, without a disability, and he very much calls it tuning into an individual's needs and disability. So he's visually impaired, but that doesn't mean he can read Braille. So if you gave them a Braille card, you wouldn't necessarily read it, whereas
Yeah.
another visually impaired person would ask for it in Braille. The same with an autistic person. We have people in our centre who don't like physical contact, and you have other people who want to give you a hug every day, and it's about learning those differences. And just because you've got that label doesn't mean you need the same treatment. Everybody needs their own individual support plans.
And I think what's important about that when we were talking about it is because, you know, like, everybody has their own opinion about racism and what's the right thing to do. And I mean, like, in that fashion is that it's like, as a teacher or as a provider and everything like that, I was saying that it's about like, because everybody has a different way of learning, it's about like humility. It's like about how you're actually trying to get something across. So when you said that about like everybody learns differently, it's like, I mean, where was it that you said? It's like, he says like, see the board, and yeah, can everybody see the board? And without considering that there might be someone there that can't.
Yeah, I go to a lot of sort of events with my boss who is visually impaired, and people will do a PowerPoint presentation, and people don't realise that when you do that and they go, I'll just let you read through the screen. Well, there's a person in the room who can't read through that screen, and only that I'm with him am I able to sort of give him an audio of what's on that screen. So you just have to be aware of who your audiences are when you're delivering training and
But then
presentations.
there's always that thing about somebody going, oh, they would think about me. Right? And I was saying it's like, you know, because we all have done it, like where you have opening agreements and stuff like that. You so it's like, oh, so everybody need this and everybody need that. And it's like, it's two-way street, isn't it? You know, because instead of just quickly like hiding what's going on for you, that's why I started out with that hidden disability. It's about letting people know, and that's what I think these conversations are all about. It's about breaking the stigma around what is going on for you, and that is especially around mental health. You know, if everybody wonder, hey, how are we going to get around that tree? And that's what I mean, it's just that it's openly being able to say what is going on for you, because there are some people who want to be considerate and they just didn't know.
Yeah.
Right? But, you know, and you probably heard this a million times, because in dealing with like race hate crimes and all that, there'll always be somebody saying, oh, I didn't know. You know, and but it's like, yeah, letting people know what's going on for you, what are you dealing with, and everything, because a lot of mental health, like I was saying to you guys about the autistic spectrum now, right? And a lot of it we don't even know. We can't see a person with Tourette's or self-mutism or dyspraxia. It's not a badge, you know what I mean? Because they're all just people coping and living with what they're dealing with, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. I think for us, it is about individuals being able to stand up for themselves and being proud of who they are. Whatever their abilities, they should have the confidence to express themselves and be true to themselves as well. It's where that stigma that you mentioned arises, where they feel that they've got to hide parts of themselves, they've got to be hidden, and they can't open up to people and tell people what it is that they need to have put in place for them to be able to be on par with someone else who may be able-bodied, who may be different to themselves. At the end of the day, it's life has to be life isn't fair for everybody, but we need to put the process in place so there is that ability to level the playing field for everyone, whatever it may be. So we put in place resources like Kate mentioned about verbally explaining to Dave what's going on, what's being displayed on screens or whatever. Those resources need to be put in place for everyone. And that's when equity takes place. That's where people have the same level of opportunities, not just in learning situations, but in life in general.
Yeah.
So we have the Disability Discrimination Act and things like that. But we've moved on from that now. We talk about accessibility. Accessibility covers absolutely everything, doesn't it? It's not just about reading materials, it's not about visual things. It's about just getting out in the street, getting out of the house and going to places where they should be able to go.
Right.
We need people to understand that we can all play part in that.
Well, now getting you to come in today, you know, was John was really late. No, I'm kidding. You didn't come in today because you were in school, actually doing what you do, and you were working on a project called It's Okay to Be Different, which you also filmed by the BBC. And so can you tell us a little bit about this project? Because I think it has to do with what Anthony Walker
Yeah, I mean,
Foundation does.
yeah. One of the key aspects of the work at the foundation is to say it's to raise awareness that we're all different, that diversity needs to be valued and respected, that equality is a principle that needs to be applied in life. So education is key to this, if we're going to make a change. And this, It's Okay to Be Different, is one of the learning resources that we use for primary school children. So it's basics that we can be from a different country, we can speak a different language, and so on. There's all those differences, but at the end of the day, it means we want to be respected, we want to be appreciated, we want to be liked,
Yeah.
and what those differences, whatever they may be, shouldn't be a reason for someone to look at us and treat us differently, treat us unfairly. We talk about fairness when we talk to young children. They were year groups 3 and 4, so they're only 7 and 8. And even at an early stage, they know what's fair and what's not fair, what's right and wrong. So we're just building on that understanding to give them a level of understanding at the right level, so that they can take on board the message we're trying to get out, but also see that they have a responsibility, that they can look out for each other within the classroom, within the school, but also within the community as well, so we can all play a part. And the school event really embraced that, because they've come up with a pledge about respecting everyone, regardless of who they are, respecting people's religion, their sexuality, their race, and so on. And that's a pledge that the school reads out each day for the pupils, so that at the start of the day they understand that they need to respect each other. At the end of the day, they finish the day, know that they leave school with that message that we have to respect each other.
Well, when we were talking about this and going over the notes, I have a challenge or a question to ask you guys. So when we were talking about, hate crime and everything, which you both did answer, I was saying, where does racism where is it stemming from, right? And so it was kind of like, and I would encourage you also in the chat down below, I will be looking back at this, looking at what your responses are. Is it parents or is it social media, right? That we could allude to, that this is where the issue comes from as far as racism. Because you just said you're dealing with primary students, 7, 8, you just said. And I mean, obviously, you go all the way back to the Jane Elliott thing where little kids are playing with black and white dolls. So, racism, parents versus social media, what are you thinking?
I go parents. I think it's what's learned at home. Before I did this job, I was an antisocial behaviour officer in a deprived ward within Liverpool. And one of the housing officers called me out one day, young kids chalking on the pavement, and I was thinking, what's he called me out for? Anyway, he went, Kate, look, I'll have a read of this. And when I looked, it said, F off Polish, with an arrow to the house. They were 8 and 9-year-olds. Nobody told them. That's not something that they thought, those people are different from us, because they look the same as everybody else in the square. And when the parents came over, she went, I suppose you're going to tell us off for chalking on the pavement now. I said, no, what I am going to, and they were horrified. But I knew it had come from them. There's been a discussion between neighbours, they don't deserve this house and this green, and that had generated through to those kids, and they'd targeted that family by chalking on the pavement.
I mean, I agreed with Kate to an extent. I do believe that some parents are responsible for their behaviour and attitudes to the children, but you could also argue the point, and there probably will be listeners out there who think, well, I do my utmost to make sure my children aren't racist. They don't single out people because they're different. So I think it's too broad an answer to say yes, it's parents, or no, it's parents. There's going to be parents right across.
But you had an opinion about social media being one of the sources, so what was that?
I say social media has its value, doesn't it? it can be a tool for good, but also a tool to send out the wrong messages. And I think social media, whereby someone can put out a message and it can reach an audience of thousands, if not millions, in an instant, that can have a powerful impact as well. So all around us, everywhere we look, there's messages out there that subconsciously we can take on board. We can watch something and not really not really grasp what it's trying to say. There's always underlying message, how you can interpret one message, how someone can look at the same message and get a different interpretation of it. So I think for us, well, my point of view anyway, is that we have to be careful not to be influenced in an adverse way. Because there will be people who see something and think, that's wrong. There is absolutely no place for that in today's society. And there'll be people who look at it and think, well, I'm not that bothered, it's neither here nor there. But there'll be some people who totally agree with it and will share it and add their sentiments to it as well. So it's so vast, it's a problem.
I mean, it's true. I just think that it's both actually. But I mean, like in that aspect, there is no one defining answer in this, but it's important to at least have the conversation, because a lot of people do feel like strongly that it does start at home. That, like you just said, like young kids don't know what these words are to think that there is a problem with the difference. But then again, it's social media is also that effective with young people using, because a lot of parents leave their kids to their own devices, you know, and that's a real thing. And then when they're being bullied on social media, are they actually involving their parents or themselves and stuff, because it's them, they think they're the target and everything and stuff, you know, and it's just a strange thing. So let me just get into your origin stories before we leave with this, you know. John, I thought it was really interesting because even though, as long as I've known you, you've been involved with Anthony Walker, but you were saying that before that you were involved in victim support.
Yeah, I was involved with victim support for a long time, without telling you how long I've been there.
All right, John, we know you're old.
You look so good for 21.
I know, you
But yeah, I think from my background, as I said, I worked with victims, but working with victims, and even before I worked with victim support, I worked in the NHS, in hospitals, and I think a turning point in my life, if you're talking about life story, a turning point in my life was when I started working in hospitals and realised how vulnerable a person can be.
Right.
And I think, of being of Chinese origin as well, I grew up experiencing racism, and then suddenly, from a teenager who was quite selfish, I have to admit I was quite selfish, and really thought about what I could get out of life, suddenly working with people who were getting on in age, who were long-term stay patients as well, whose families couldn't look after them. That brought a reality check for me, and I started to think about others, and that changed my perspective. And I think that's where I started to try and understand another person's perspective, try and understand another person's life. And I think as a result of that, I think I've always worked in the voluntary sector, because I think when you work in the voluntary sector, I'm sure Kate will agree with this, you tend to give more of yourself.
Huge.
Although you get paid when you get taken on staff, you still, I think, you go over and beyond helping others. We don't deal with cases, faceless individuals or just names. We're actually dealing with people, human beings who feel pain like we do, who feel good things like we do when we do something positive for them, who feel bad when things aren't going right, just as we do. So I think that's my background, and I think for me it's a huge learning curve, and it helps me to understand people from from the other side. And I think that sort of helps me. I think you have to be a certain type of person to do the work around racism, disability, hate crime, all the types of hate crime where people are viewed by another person and treated less favourably. When you understand how they feel, I think you can definitely work in a way where you show fellow feeling to them, You'll never fully understand what they feel because you don't know exactly how they're thinking.
No, of course.
But you get a sense of perspective.
You have a sense of empathy as well.
Yeah.
It's always good. Person in your job role to have that anyway. Well, Kate, ooh, that's a tough act to follow. Maybe I should have went with you for
I have always worked in the voluntary sector, so many moons ago I worked for the tunnel police, so I was like a mole in a hole.
Whoa! I'm fascinated by the tunnels.
And then I went into antisocial behaviour and worked for a housing association as a community safety officer. And then whilst I was doing that, I was the hate crime champion, and that's how I felt. I started working with Daisy on a voluntary basis, and then was offered the role of the disability hate crime officer. I passionately love what I do now because I feel like I can make a small difference to people's lives. But I think my background gives me that knowledge and understanding to be able to manage that victim's expectations, because I know where the agency's limitations are. So I see what happens. I see the police go out to a victim of hate crime and they say, it's not a crime, but you need to get in touch with your housing because your housing needs to move you. So there's an expectation there already. The police have done nothing and the housing are going to move me. That's not a reality of a situation. What we need to do is tackle the perpetrators in whatever way we need to do that. If it's not a criminal offence, then we need to do it through a housing route and take action against the tenancy and things like that. But I think it's huge to manage people's expectations, and that is where I think there's a huge crossover into mental health. Because if you've got that, you think that nobody's listening to you or nobody's believing, or you have this support worker who comes in and goes, oh, I'm like your fairy godmother and we're going to do this, this, this and this, and you can't achieve those things, they're going to be left more vulnerable and more isolated in the future. And that's where that cycle of mental health will come in. No one believed me, no one did anything for me, it's the cycle. And for me, hugely, I see so many isolated people. I'm really lucky because the centre that we've got, I'm able to bring them in for bingo, just come and sit and have a brew, you know what, and you see the difference in people. They're frightened to come out of their houses because, you know, they might get a bit of verbal abuse at the bus stop one day, but they haven't got that network of support, and therein lies where you're kicking mental health as well. So.
Yeah, because also too, as you were saying, how Daisy works with like young people, like you know, with the kids clubs, but you also talked about the SMILE program for 16 plus and everything. I mean, like, so I mean, are the young people that are involved with Daisy, what type of young people are we talking about? Because are they people?
They come from a whole range of backgrounds, really, and disabilities. So there's a range of complex,
into the same world.
And that's where I think we're so unique. So we're not dealing solely with people with VI. So we may have visually impaired. So we've got a whole range of spectrum of disabilities. But that empowers people, because if you've got, for example, autism and you're able-bodied, then you can guide a person who's visually impaired. That gives you a sense of purpose in your life. If you're that visually impaired person who has a really good sense of perspective, you're able to give advice, sit at the table, have a cup of coffee, give really good sound advice. If you could bottle what we had in Daisy, you'd be a millionaire. Because you can't help but smile when you come into the place.
So, I mean, like, even though you said that it was set up by a person who was blind, I didn't know, is it dealing a lot with blindness, like the Palmerston School or? No,
so whilst Dave did go blind and he had
that just happens to be one of the disabilities there.
Yeah, so what we are is inclusive. So and the idea is that disabled people and their families all come. So you're on a level playing field. So you may have siblings who don't have disabilities who are coming to the centre as well. But it is inclusive.
Right. So I mean, coming down near the end, I mean, I just wanted to hit this thing that John talked about. Like when you were kind of like asking a question that is a hard question, where you were saying like, well, I'm not saying you said it, but let's say we talked about, have things changed since Stephen Lawrence and with Anthony Walker about to celebrate their 15th anniversary? Now John said off the record, so I don't know if I stumbled into this one.
I think there has to be, we like to think there have been improvements, and there probably have been improvements. Certainly the way the police respond, where they respond to every instance whether it's a crime or not. At the very least, they're recording it as an incident. And if during the investigation it's found that it's not a racist hate crime or disability hate crime or homophobic hate crime, at least they're responding in a way that they should be.
Yeah.
In terms of the community's perspective, that's much more difficult to say because it's how we see things. As a practitioner, I can see all the things that should have been put in place, and I like to think that most of them have been put in place. For example, another option to report a hate crime other than the police, we know that's in place.
Yeah.
Whether people buy into that is down to the individual, down to the community. In an ideal world, we'd want everyone, whoever they may be, who experiences hate crime, whatever shape or form that may take, they've got the option to either go to the police or go to a third-party reporting centre, go to Daisy Inclusive directly, go to the Anthony Walker Foundation directly, but we know a lot of people aren't. So in that sense, there still needs to be a lot of work done.
Yeah.
The government's put in legislation, they put in hate crime action plans. That's, I think, is to keep the momentum going. So, so the basis to the foundation for that improved practice is there, but I think it's an ongoing piece of work. It's like painting a bridge, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
When you're ever going to get to the end. So
exactly, and I mean, you know, and I mean, but what I would like to just say is I want to first of all thank you guys for coming in. Kate, where could people find Daisy Inclusive?
So we're based on Barn Street, or just off Breck Road. We are between the Home and Bargain.
Well, actually, I meant your social media handles.
I'm just giving you a full-on description. I can explain that for you and everything.
Now she told us where you are.
Yeah. So we are on Facebook and Twitter, and we are as Daisy UK.
Yeah. John, where can people find you?
We're on,
Can you give us that now?
I want to know where your house is on Google Earth.
We're on Dale Street. But our Twitter handle is AWF_Liverpool. We're on Facebook as well. We have got an Instagram account, although it's badly managed at the moment. We're not as prolific. Twitter aside, it's not too bad. Hate Crime Awareness Week, we're trying to put a few more messages out there. We'd like to tag in Daisy and the other partner agencies, because I think that's one thing that we have to highlight, is that we work together. We work with a host of other agencies as well, because it's something that we can't do. In an ideal world, we'd have unlimited resources, but we haven't got it. So we need to help each other, support each other, and if we do that effectively, then we help a lot more people out there in the community.
Exactly. And so it's the 15th anniversary this year.
Next year.
The 15th anniversary next year, July 22nd. Well, you know, that would have been obvious, right? And look forward to that BBC documentary, hopefully, that, you know, we'll get John on and everything. And so Daisy Inclusive is another great organization that's working within the city, working with people that, you know, need it. And let's get the conversation going. Let's get the invisible disability to be more visible and everything. And that's not a play on words. I just thought it was pretty cool. So once again, I'd like to thank John Howe and Kate Gore for coming in here to Condor Online. Again, talking about Mental Health Awareness Week. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please, you know, say something in the chat, man. This conversation is going on good. And then I'll let these people know that what you said. And they will like and subscribe and share as well. So thank you very much for everybody who's watching. Peace out.